Where did it start from? It started, the first leg of the journey, it started from the west coast of Africa. The hit was so hard and so huge that he was thrown out of the ship and he started to sink. What are Mayday calls? Mayday calls are nothing but the calls made using the radio stations by the planes or the boats in the emergency conditions. Hello and a warm welcome to all of you to your prep school English classes. I am your English teacher, Kshama. In this session today, we are going to talk about your second chapter from the textbook Hornbill, named as We Are Not Afraid to Die If We Can All Be Together. I know that's a very long title, but who are not afraid to die if they're all together? Let's find out in this lesson. This lesson over here is going to be very interesting because it is a real incident. It's a documentation of the real incident that has taken place. Now, it's written by Gordon Cook and Alan East. Now, we're going to get to know about the authors as well. But before that, what do we have in this session for you all? We have to talk about the author of the lesson, the background of the lesson, what is happening in the lesson, how is it that people have ended up in a situation where they're facing death, and how do they get past it, or do they have to face it? What is it the end? We have to find out, right? So the background, the summary of the lesson, and we're going to recap the events that are taking place in the lesson. Let's waste no time and let's dive in, okay? So in this one, I have a couple of questions for you. As always, Kshama ma'am coming without questions, that's not going to happen, right? That's pretty much equivalent to being impossible. Now, I have a couple of questions. What are these questions? The first one being, what are humans more afraid of? What do you think humans are more afraid of? Is it death exactly that people are afraid of? Or is it the idea of dying alone? You don't know what is going to happen after death, what awaits you. We have no idea, right? What is more scary? I know you're all too young to think about it, or are you not? Let's give it a thought, right? Now, what is, if you know that death is coming for you, is it easier for you to accept it? When you know that, okay, this is the end, the clarity of thought, is it, does it make it easier to accept death? Is it so? Then, is risk a mandatory factor to achieve something? Why is it that whatever that comes easier to us, we don't, value it much? But when there was struggle behind it, when there is so much risk taken to do something, it becomes glorious, it becomes magnificent, right? How is it that so? Then, what gives people hope in the most hopeless situations? What is it that makes them, I need to fight, I need to get over this thing or this situation? What does hope do to you, right? All of these things, I want you to think about it, go over it. Let's talk about the two important authors. They are not just authors, mind you. The first one over here is Gordon Cook. What do we know about Gordon Cook? Gordon Cook is a two-time Canadian Olympic sailor. Not just that, he is a graduate of engineering in the branch of physics from Queen's University. Okay, this is what we know about Gordon Cook. He is a two-time Olympic champion. He is a sailor. Okay, and then he is also an engineering graduate in the subject, which subject? In physics from Queen's University. What do we know about Alan East? Who is Alan East? Alan East worked as a litigator, and then he also worked as a manager and a legal trainer. Alan worked as a legal trainer, manager, not just for Gordon Cook, but also for Remocker in 2008 Beijing Olympics. Now, these two, we know what is the bond between them. Alan East worked as a manager for Gordon Cook. He has also helped in co-authoring this text that we are going to study about now. Okay, without wasting any time, let's start. Okay, there is a dream that we have to talk about. Everything starts with something. What is it that led to the starting of this chapter over here? Making somebody say that we are not afraid to die if we can all be together. Who is saying it and why is it that they are saying it? It all starts from a dream set in 1976. This story over here is set in the period of 1976, and there is a dream. What is that dream? Who are involved in it? Let me introduce you to them. The first one is Gordon Cook. I have told you that this is an actual story that happened. It is an actual story. Now, the characters also ought to be actual, right? Gordon Cook over here is a 37-year-old businessman. He is also the father of two children, Jonathan and Susan, you'll see over here. Susan is 7-year-old. She's the daughter. And Jonathan is only 1 year younger than her. He is 6. And Gordon Cook's wife is Mary. All of them have a dream. Now, what is that dream? I will introduce that to you. But before that, we have 2 crew members over here who will be accompanying this family in order to, achieve that dream, that goal. Now, what is it, that dream? It is eating all of us up, right? Now, the crew members are Larry Sigel, who is from America, and Herb Siegler, who is Swiss. Okay, let's waste no time after getting to know who and who. There's a father, Gordon Cook, his wife, Mary. There are 2 little kids, Susan, who is 7-year-old, and Jonathan, who is 6-year-old. Along with them, we have Larry Sigel and Herb Siegler. Now, these 2 are the ones that are accompanying them in this dream. What is the dream? The dream was to replicate the voyage taken up by Captain James Cook. Yes, 200 years ago, whatever the voyage that this man had taken up, this family wanted to replicate, take up the same thing. And in order to do that, they had prepared so much. For the period of 16 years, they had worked on sharpening their seafaring skills. It's not easy, just you decide one fine day that, oh, I have the dream to take up this voyage and just go out there, right? You have to face the roughest sea. You should make sure that you know how to sail a boat, and how do you survive if there's no food, no water, right? Can you survive on salt water for a very long period of time? Can you manage to drink it for a period of time at least? Now, all of that is amongst the n number of challenges that you have to face, right? So in order to face all of this, for the period of how many years? 16 years, they have spent time and all of their efforts in sharpening all of these skills. Along with that, there's a beautiful boat that they have, 16 years they've spent honing their seafaring skills. And then there is a boat. What is the name of the boat? It's Wave Walker. Such a beautiful name, isn't it? Wave Walker is 23 meters, 30 ton. It weighs 30 ton. Now, this is also set in order for them to take up this voyage. What is the name of the ship? It's Wave Walker. Then, the journey that they wanted to take up, it was planned for 3 years, 3 long years. In order to complete that voyage, they wanted 3 long years. And where did it start from? It started, the first leg of the journey, it started from the west coast of Africa. Now, from the African continent, the west side of it, they started to move, and from there to Cape Town. Cape Town is in the south of Africa, as you can see. That is where their journey, the first leg of the journey, started. Now, what happened in the journey? Okay, that we want to know. Isn't it curious? You will get to know every single detail of what happened in this voyage. What did they face? How did they, encounter such things? How did they end up in it in the first place? How did they cope up with it? Everything we are going to learn over here. Now, second day out of Cape Town. I had told you that from the west of Africa, they have moved to the south, Cape Town. And out of Cape Town, they are moving towards the Indian Ocean. As they are moving, they are facing strong gales. What are strong gales? These are storm. These are wind blowing as though they are about to hit and, destroy everything. Such is the strength of the wind that is blowing. How will they manage to survive after this? What is happening? Let's see. There is continuous strong gales that are blowing, and there are bothersome 15 meters high waves. Now, you might have noticed in the ship, there will be a long wooden, pole that will be there. And to the pole, there will be a cloth that is attached. You might have seen in the microscope, like the boats and everything, okay? In the boat, you have seen that. That is called as the main mast. Now, the waves that were approaching this boat was so high, it was as high as the main mast of the ship. That high. Wouldn't it drown them? Okay? As high as the main mast. That is how their situation is on just the second day out of Cape Town. And then on 25th of December, the next day, what happened? They were 3,500 kilometers east of Cape Town. They were almost moving towards the Indian Ocean. They are 3,500 kilometers east to the Cape Town. What happened afterwards? What's Christmas without Christmas tree? They also had a Christmas tree. They celebrated Christmas. It was all fun. And they hoped and prayed that their situation, the encounter with the strong gales and wind and all the 15-meter high waves that are approaching towards the ship, they assumed and hoped that their situation might get better and they might have smooth sail after this. They hoped and prayed. But did that happen actually? No. Sorry to disappoint you, but that did not happen. What actually happened? By the New Year's Day, January 1st, they thought that okay, there might be some improvement, but that did not happen. Instead, what happened was that gigantic waves started approaching. It was bigger than ever now. The difficulty had doubled. What will they do now? The gigantic waves had started to approach. They had to face it. There was no other way, right? They can't just turn back and go back from wherever they came. They have to face it because they have spent 16 years trying to, practice all the skills and to just survive somehow and finish the voyage. Now they can't give up, right? Now over here, there was painful screaming of the winds. The wind has increased very, very dangerously, and foreseeing all these threats, they decided that okay, this is the right time for us to put on our life jackets, oil skins and everything, right? Just in case something goes wrong, we need to be ready. And foreseeing the danger, they decided, okay, let's just put on all the lifelines and life jackets and be ready for what is about to come. Then there was complete silence surrounding them after this. I know there was painful roaring of the winds and everything. All of a sudden, by 6 p.m. in the evening, there was complete silence on January 2nd. This is the next day that we are talking about. Is this silence the indication of the danger that is about to come? Yes, we have guessed it right. Now, what is the danger? The wind has dropped. The sky has grew darker. I want all of your senses, your imagination skills, everything to be active right now. Imagine the wind dropping, everything, coming down to zero. There is complete silence and the sky has grown dark now. What are we waiting for? The danger that we were assuming that it would arrive, it has arrived. First up, it seemed like there was a big cloud coming towards the ship, but in turn, it was not a big cloud. It was a huge, huge wave that was approaching near the ship. What seemed like an enormous cloud turned into a wave. And before they could realize, before that they could see, oh, it's a wave and not a cloud. There's not much a cloud to the ship, right? But a wave can do a lot of harm to the ship. Before they could think, before they could switch and do something, the wave had already hit the ship. Okay, what had happened afterwards? Let's understand. The wave hit the ship. Tremendous explosion was there on the deck. Deck is nothing but the platform of the ship or the boat where people are standing. When the wave hit the ship, there was complete explosion, and what happened? There was like white and green mixed water. Water started flooding inside the ship. Something had to be done about it. Now the author or Gordon Cook, who was on the wheels, he hit himself with the explosion. He was hit to the wheel. Wheel is the one that we use to control the ship, right? He was hit on the wheel, and the hit was so hard and so huge that he was thrown out of the ship and he started to sink. Yes, the one who was in control of the ship, he hit himself to the wheel and flew out of the ship and started sinking. That's the worst that there could be, right? Now the stream of white and green water breaks into the ship. We saw that. Then the speaker's head was smashed into the wheel. He flew overboard and started to sink. Just when he was about to accept death, and he was like, okay, is this the end of me? And is there anything that is there nothing that I can do about it? Just as he was about to, accept his death and give up, right then his head actually popped out of the water. And he was like, okay, now I can't give up. Somehow he managed to come back on the ship, and he did, but only to be tossed like a rag doll. Like it felt as though he had no life or no control over his body. There was no autonomy. The wave was just making them play around. He was again tossed on the ship front and back. Somehow he tried to gain control over the wheel, the steering wheel, okay? So he embraced peace. As he was about to accept death, what happened? Unexpectedly, his head popped out of the water. which means he was alive. He was still alive. Then with great difficulty, he got back into Wave Walker, which is our boat, then only to be tossed around like a rag doll. Imagine how his situation would be. Then it costed him cracking of his left ribs and a mouth filled with broken teeth and blood, okay? He was, thrown out like a rag doll so hard that his left ribs were broken, shattered. And also his mouth, his teeth were all broken, mouth was filled with blood. That is what it costed him. It was not just that he was tossed out and then he aram se came back in and he was like, oh, I've got control of it, no worries. No, it costed him so much of pain and so much of danger to get back into Wave Walker and take control over the wheel. Just as he got control over the wheel, what happened? This is getting interesting. It is moving on towards becoming more and more interesting, right? Now over here, as he got control over the wheel, he called for his wife. His wife arrived there somehow and then he handed the wheel to Mary. He had to go see the damages that were, about to destroy the ship. If that was not fixed in time, the entire ship would sink. So there are multiple things that he had to pay attention to. He handed the wheel to Mary. What did he do next? Then Larry and Herb, our crew members, Larry Sigil and Herb Siegler, were busy pumping out the water that was coming inside the ship. Then when there is so much water inside the ship would obviously sink, right? They were pumping out like madmen. Then the boat had some major damages that Gordon Cook had to pay attention to. So he rushed over there somehow and then he reached to the children's cabin. What has happened to the children in all of this? We just forgot about what has happened to the children. It was all smooth. It started from a dream. Now we have come and we are stuck in such a scenario that we don't know what is about to happen, right? Now in the cabin, in the children's cabin, we have Susan and Jonathan. What has happened to Sue is that she has bumped her head so hard. There is a big bump on her head. And then she has also cut her arms. There was so much of movement, so much of explosion that has happened, right? So she has hurt herself in all of this explosion. And there is Jonathan, who is 6-year-old. He is also afraid. But Gordon has no time to pay attention to all of this. Saving themselves, all of themselves on the whole, is very much important than paying attention to all these wounds and scars and damages, right? So what does he do? There is a big head bump on Sue and there is a cut on her arm. Then he grabbed some tools and managed to divert all the water that was coming inside the ship. Somehow he managed. But there were blockages, not to deny, there were blockages, there were short circuits in the electric pumps. That was still there and there was nothing that could be done about it, right? Then there was again threatening raise of water levels. The water levels were not at all subsiding. It was as though the water had decided that I am going to finish everything that comes in my way today, right? Then Mayday calls were unfortunately unheard. Now what are Mayday calls? Mayday calls are nothing but the calls made using the radio stations by the planes or the boats in the emergency conditions, just to reach help. If somebody is out there, people can answer these Mayday calls, help will be sent to them. But in our case, Mayday calls are also unanswered. Nobody is answering these Mayday calls, and where will the help be sent from? So this is the current scenario. It's getting intense as I move from slide to slide, right? This is that we have survived for January 3rd. This was till now we have talked about January 2nd. We have moved to January 3rd. The ship Wave Walker has fortunately survived. 2 hours of rotational, they try to relax and they try to pump out all the water like mad people. That is done. And somehow the water that was coming inside the ship, we have been able to take control over it. Gordon Cook, Mary, Jonathan, Sue, Larry, and our Swissman, Siegler, everybody have, worked out really hard to take control over this damage that was about to happen. Then, although Wave Walker had survived 15 hours after the wave was hit, it is not possible for Wave Walker to reach Australia straight away in this condition that it is in. So something has to be done about it. It's not possible to reach Australia, right? What can be done about it? The only option left was to find these pinpricks in the vast ocean. What are these pinpricks that we are talking about? To find some island. Now, what is the one island option that we had? It is the Isle Amsterdam island that is there. It's a 65 kilometer stretching island. If that is found, there are chances of these people surviving, because the condition that Wave Walker is in right now, it's not really possible for them to just assume and hope out of the blue that they will reach Australia straight away. Now, what is that we have to find? We have to find Isle Amsterdam. That is where these people are right now. Moving forward, do they reach Isle Amsterdam? What happens? Let's see. On January 4th, what happens on the January 4th? January 3rd, they decide that, okay, we need to find 15 hours after the ship was hit by the wave. What do they decide? That we can't straight away go to Australia. We have to find an island. Then on the 4th of January, they have their first meal after how many days? After 2 days. There was no time to sit and have food, was there, when the wave was hitting the ship, right? After 36 hours of continuous pumping and putting the water out, they were able to get some food. Few centimeters of water was out. Then Mary managed to find some corned beef and cracker biscuits, okay? She managed to find these two, and they had food 2 days after all the explosion and stuff. Later on, they headed towards where they assumed the island would be. They do not know it for sure. They have not done it before. They have not gone there before, right? So they assumed for the island to be in a certain direction, in a certain distance. And assuming that, hoping that, they headed towards that direction. Now, there was so much uncertainty over here. We don't know what is going to happen, if they are going to find the island or not. Then, at 4 p.m., the clouds grew darker again. Again, what is left in that ship or in all of their bodies and souls for this water to take away now, right? The clouds grew darker again. Is it the indication of danger again? We don't know. Then, the wind was back and the sea rose high again. There was again storms, strong gales, and painful sound of the wind that was blowing. The sea levels rose high. Now, after this, the weather deteriorated throughout the night. Throughout the night, they managed to pump out water, but the weather just kept challenging them over and over again. Now, on the 5th of January, something very memorable happened. It is true that there is a lot of misery going on here, a lot of danger that is in the way. But in all of this, there's something really sweet that happens. And that is what the title of the lesson is inspired from. There's nothing that is adaptable for this lesson to be called as than this, I assure you. What is it that happens? It's very sweet. Pay attention. Now, the narrator went to comfort the kids. In all of this, he decided, let me just talk to the kids. I don't know what they're doing, how they are feeling. These are just 6 and 7-year-olds, right? Then when he went there, John, his son, 6-year-old, asks, Daddy, are we going to die? Is this the end? I don't know if he understands what is death and all of that. He's just 6-year-old. But he says, Daddy, are we going to die? To which, like every father does, he tries to reassure him and tells him, no, everything's going to be fine. We are going to get out of this. Like every other father, right? But John says something. A reply given by John made his father speechless. There's nothing that he could have said to that. What did John say? John says, we are not afraid to die or dying if we can all be together, Daddy. You, Mummy, Sue, and I. If we can all be together, there's nothing that we are afraid of. We are not afraid of dying. Does dying together makes it any better? No, if you ask me. But in this situation over here, a word of warmth is what that was required. That motivated the narrator like anything. When he came out of the children's cabin, he wanted to give it his 100% or whatever that he had and make sure to find this island. No matter what it costed, he had to get it right now. Then the same evening, the couple sat down and spent their night hand in hand. They were also afraid. Although they were trying to reassure and safeguard the children, they also were not sure of what was coming and how they were going to deal with it. So they also spent that day hand in hand. What happened next? On the 6th of January, let's hope for the best. What is the best? We want Isle Amsterdam. That's what the best that can be coming, please. Right? So Wave Walker rode out the storm that was coming. You have to appreciate Wave Walker over here. No matter what the kind of wind that was blowing, the storms that were coming, this Wave Walker is hitting everything, roaring and passing over everything, right? The wind was easing a little bit. Then they were still looking for a 65-kilometer wide island, but have they found it? No, not yet. Then, despite suffering from so much pain, there was Susan, suffering from head bump and arm cut and everything. None of them complained about anything. These 6 and 7-year-olds should be the ones who are whining and crying about, Daddy, let's go back. Mommy, why did you bring us here? But over here, look at the determination and this family belongingness that they're showing towards their parents right now in this situation. Although they had so much sufferings and pain, Sue comes to her parents with a greeting card that she has made. These are sweet things done by both the kids. The one that John says and the one that Sue does. Now, what does Susan say? The front part of the card had funny caricatures of Mummy and Daddy to make them, a little better or to bring a smile on their face. Then inside, oh, how I love both of you. She had written lines expressing how much she loved her parents. She wanted to let them know that she was proud of them and she was happy to be their daughter. Amidst this is January 6th. What happened? Did we miss out on the island or something? Let's see. Now over here about 2 p.m., the narrator asked Larry that, okay, we should be expecting the island. If it is where I'm assuming it to be, then we should be expecting the island by 5 p.m. Now it's 2 o'clock in the evening. Now, based on my calculations, if we are going in the right direction and in the right distance, if the Isle Amsterdam is there, then we should be reaching it by 5 p.m. He said so and he actually fell asleep. He was so tired. It is more than 36 hours of pumping and putting the water out and trying to keep it all in one piece, right? In all of that, he dozed off, fell asleep. After that, when he woke up, he thought that, oh, we might have missed the island. Tell me, that's what that has happened, right? But no, that's not what that has happened. What has happened? Now, John and Sue arrive and they gave him a big hug and told him how proud they are of their daddy. He is the best daddy in the world and the best possible captain there could be. But Gordon Cook was like, oh dear, there's no time for all of that. No, there is time. There's plenty of time for all of that. Guess what? We have found the island. Yes, they had managed to find the island, and the next morning they were cheerfully welcomed by only the island had only 25 inhabitants. The original people, natives who lived over there, they were cheerfully welcomed by these people. There was no problem about it. And it was a feeling of gratefulness and thankfulness to finally have ground beneath their feet after what seemed like complete terrible death. Now to have hope and to have this opportunity, just to have land beneath their feet was a big thing for them. So they were in complete gratitude. And the two people, Larry and Siegler, they were completely cheerful and optimistic, and they always were there. He was thankful. Gordon Cook was thankful about them too. And he was very grateful about his persistent wife, Mary. No matter what happened, she was there with him too. And who are the two amazing, cute little heroes of ours in this lesson? That award definitely goes to these two. Sue, who had a big bump, she later on went through 6 minor operations. 6 operations she had to go through. But she did not complain about it at all throughout the way, did she? And John, of course, our sweet little boy who was not at all afraid to die if they are all dying together, or if Mummy, Daddy and Sue can be with him. He was not afraid to die at all. That was what was there in our lesson today. It was one interesting roller coaster, wasn't it? Now in this chapter over here, there was a dream. The story is set in 1976, written by Gordon Cook and Alan East. What is it about? They had a dream to recreate the voyage taken up by James Cook 200 years ago. And for that, they were ready with their ship called Wave Walker. That was the dream they had. Then in the southern Indian Ocean, the roughest sea, they faced the strongest gales. They faced a lot of waves which were, breathtaking. Then on the 2nd January, the beginning of the possible end, we see a huge wave hitting the ship. There is an explosion. Gordon Cook is tossed out of the ship, but somehow manages to get back. His ribs are broken. His mouth is filled with blood and teeth. that is broken, and then he tries to, repair the damages that have happened to the ship. And then he also goes on to check on the children, but the children have also had certain amount of damages. Sue has cut her arms, and then there is a big bump on her head. Despite all of this, there was no time for all of this. Then he tried to reach out the mayday calls and reach out for help. That also didn't work. The wave was as though like it was, rising high. The sea level was rising high, then again coming down. Then the wind was blowing faster. This, it kept on going. But they somehow managed to pump out all the water like mad people, completely driven crazy. They wanted to survive. And then Wave Walker somehow managed to ride through all the storms. They had food 2 days after the wave was hit to the boat. They had corned beef and cracker biscuits, of course. But in between all of this, John says, we are not afraid to die if we can all be together, Daddy. Don't worry about it. That gives a lot of strength and determination for his father to do and give his best no matter what is coming up. Then we also have Sue, who makes beautiful cards telling her parents how much she loves them. That is sweet. And then on 6th of January, they were expecting to reach and get the Isle of Amsterdam. They can't reach Australia straight away based on how much of, damages that have happened to the ship and how much they have endured. It was not easy to reach Australia once and for all. So they decided to find an island, which is a 65-kilometer wide island called as Isle Amsterdam. And when he thought he had actually fallen asleep, and he actually thought that they have missed on the island, they actually found the island and were welcomed by 25, cheerful inhabitants of the island. And they were all grateful about the company that they had and how they managed to pass through it all. Okay. That was one roller coaster, completely interesting. It had us at the edge of our seats kind of story. I hope you all enjoyed the story. Do not miss out on any details from the story. And I hope you enjoyed this session, and see you all in the next class. Thank you.